This is the introduction to economics class, and we're looking at chapter 2, production possibilities, opportunity cost, and economic growth. And this is an extension of chapter 1, where we're looking at introductory terminology. We learned that scarcity is a fundamental problem of economics, and because we have scarce resources, we have to make decisions. We have to prioritize and make choices about our time and about our money with the limited energy that we have. Society also has to make decisions based off of scarce resources. For example, what products do we make in our society? How do we make them, and who do we make them for? And a couple of key concepts that deal with how people make decisions include thinking at the margin and opportunity costs. An opportunity cost is what you sacrifice for something else. It's what you give up to get something else. Another way to think about it is the next best use of your time. So it's your next best alternative, as it says. So if I ask students, what's your opportunity cost of being in class? A common answer is, I want to make an A. That's why I'm in class. And although I appreciate that good attitude of wanting to do well in the class, that's not answering what this key term is asking. So an opportunity cost deals with what you sacrificed to be in class. When people say I want to make an A, they're thinking about the game. But remember, your opportunity cost is what you lost out on. So because I chose to be in class, I cannot blank. Whatever goes in that blank is the next best alternative use of your time, right? It's what you sacrificed. Some of you might say, eating dinner with my family. Some of you might say, spending time walking my dog or working. It's the next best use of the hour and a half that you would have spent in class. So it's a different way of thinking about things. It's not just your game that we're concerned about anymore. It is literally what else you could be doing. For a full-time student, I know some of my students work full-time and go to school full-time, but for most of my students, they are maybe working part-time. And if you look at a typical college student who's going to school full-time, you could say, for their 4 years that they're spending earning their undergraduate degree, the biggest opportunity cost for them during those 4 years is their foregone salary. They could have been working an entry-level job for those 4 years, and they have missed out on those 4 years of salary, and that would be the biggest opportunity cost for a typical college student. And that's the example in the textbook. Can opportunity cost be something other than money? Yes, it's what else you could have spent with your money. I remember one August, it was very, very hot outside, and I was letting my dogs out one more time before I went to class, and I noticed something in the backyard. I got closer to it and noticed that it was a dead possum. And, I got to thinking, maybe I could scoop it up really fast. Maybe I could run to the side of the road and dump it. I had called Waco Waste, and they said if I could get it to the side of the road, they would pick it up for free. But if they had to step onto my property to get it, and they have different price ranges for a different size. I told them I thought it was a medium-sized animal. They told me it was $40. Well, I started thinking about what possums are known for, and I started thinking, I need to go teach soon. I can't be dealing with a possum bite. So I went ahead and called. I'll be honest, I chickened out. I went ahead and called Waco Waste and had them come out and pick up the possum. And according to the Waco Waste employee, he said that it looked like it had gotten run over in the street, and with its last rush of adrenaline was able to run up the driveway, push open the chain link fence, and die by the shed. So as far as I know, it was deceased, but I've heard stories about possums being so good at pretending like they're dead and coming back even after days of being tied up in a garbage can, in a trash can in the garbage can. But my opportunity cost of having somebody get rid of that dead possum was $40 of gas money. Because I spent money on an additional $40 of my bill for Waco Waste, that during that billing cycle, I had $40 less in my budget that I could spend on gas money. So absolutely, opportunity cost could be something other than money. So again, fundamental problem of economics. We have a limited amount of money. We have a limited amount of time and energy. Because of that, we have to prioritize and make choices. Every time you make a choice, you're giving up something. If you pick choice A, you can't do choice B. If you go to somebody's birthday party, you have less time to study for a test, right? And what you give up, what you sacrifice is your opportunity cost. We have a name for that. Another thing that economists say plays a role in our decision making is thinking at the margin. And you might have remembered from grade school, your teacher might have told you not to write on the margin, the very, very edge of your paper, right? Well, thinking at the margin is kind of like that. We're looking at the costs and benefits of the edge, so to speak, one more additional unit. Textbook definition is we're looking at the additions or subtractions from a current situation. So whatever your status quo is, let's pretend that you're taking 4 classes this semester. You have to take 4 classes to be full-time. Should you take a 5th class? So your current situation is 4 classes. What would be a marginal analysis? It's looking at the additional study time of that 5th class. How much is it going to cost you? Given that you're already going to be studying for 4 classes, and can you handle it? What's the marginal benefit? Are you going to be able to graduate early, or is it just going to be too much because you're working and you've already got 4 and that's already enough? So the marginal analysis is, what's my current situation? What is the benefit and the cost of that next unit, of that 5th class? Newspapers. There's a stack of newspapers right outside the bookstore. And at this point, it might be free for you all, but if you were to find a stack of newspapers at your doctor's office or on Baylor campus, you've got to put in some money first. I think it's 75 cents for a weekday issue for the Waco trip. As soon as you put your money in, you can open the door, you can get it, or the stacks that are by my in the lobby of my doctor's office, there's actually not a box that the newspapers are in. It's just this open stack, and anybody who wants to can just go up and take all 10 if they want to. But here's the thing, no one takes all 10, because the marginal benefit of a second newspaper after you've read today's Waco Trib is going to be very little. If it might be zero for you if you can't find a use for that newspaper. So they know that your marginal benefit of the second or third or fourth, nobody's going to take all 10 newspapers because they only need one. The marginal benefit of that second one is going to be so low, or probably even zero, after you know what's going on today in today's news. And you compare this with a vending machine like Coca-Cola, Coke machine. There's some mechanisms set in place there where you can only get one item because you can save, your soft drinks for tomorrow, your snacks for tomorrow, and you can use them just fine later on. But the marginal benefit of today's newspaper, after you've already read it, another copy is not going to be any more useful for you. The production possibilities curve is a curve that shows different combinations of 2 outputs that an economy can produce. And so Remember, in economics, models are a simplified version of reality. So this is assuming that a society makes only two products. The United States, for example, makes tons of products. We make t-shirts and tennis shoes and microwaves. We produce oil, we produce all sorts of items, but we're keeping it simple in this model. Two products, given available resources and technology. This is a graph that shows the maximum combinations if we use all of our resources. Fixed resources. Remember, scarcity, we have scarce resources. That's all we have for today. Any business today, they have to make production decisions off of the personnel that they have today, the office space that they have today. They can expand later on. They can build onto their existing building next year. They can hire more people, but that takes some time. You've got to interview and train people. So the assumption is using our resources today, how much of these two products can we make? This is called a production possibilities curve, or sometimes it's called a frontier. It limits an economy to points below the curve or on the curve. I'll create a different video here in a minute where we're looking at this actual graph, and we'll have a graph on the next slide, actually, next few slides. Well, all the points on the graph on the actual line are considered efficient. So all of our workers are doing what they're supposed to. All the machines are going down. Nothing are working. Nothing's offline. That's referred to as efficient. If we're going to move between two efficient points, that means we have moved somebody. We have moved some resources or some workers from one line to the other. If we're going to be making more of one product, that means we're going to have to give up some production of the other product. So here we've got military goods and consumer goods. On the vertical axis, we've got billions of units, and on the horizontal axis, we've got billions of units as well. If in the society we were only going to be focused on producing military goods only, no consumer goods, so everybody is on the military goods production line, we can make 160 billion units of military goods. If all of our machines are going, everybody's reported to work, all of our office space, our factory space is being utilized efficiently. That's point A. If we were to move to point B and say, hey, we want to make some consumer goods. So if we wanted to move from point A to point B, you can see that we're moving from 0 consumer goods to 40 billion units of consumer goods. We're going to have to move some people off of the military goods line and say, hey, I need you to stop that. I need you to switch over here and help start making more consumer goods. Because we had a scarce amount of resources, because we were using everything, all of our resources efficiently already, we're taking away some people from the military goods line. And look, in order to gain at point B, in order to gain 40 billion units of consumer goods, we're going to have to sacrifice. We go from 160 billion to 140 billion. So we sacrifice 20 billion military goods to gain 40 billion units of consumer goods. There's a name for that. Remember what you give up to get something else? The opportunity cost of moving from point A to point B. The opportunity cost of gaining 40 billion consumer goods is 20, we get that from 160 minus 140, 20 billion units of military goods. Remember on the previous slide, any point along the line, so A, B, C, and D, we're along this green line. All of our resources are being used efficiently. All hands on deck, nobody's sick, All the machines are running just like they're supposed to. What about point U? Well, you can see from point C, if all of our machines were going, we could be making 80 billion military goods and 80 billion consumer goods. So that's a point of efficiency. Can we make 80 billion units of military goods at point U and only 40 billion units of consumer goods? Yeah, we can. It's like C, think of C as you attended all of your classes today. You attended all 4 classes. You scheduled them all on today. Well, that's if you went to all of your classes, and U is going to just 2 classes. Yeah, that's possible, but you didn't do all that you were supposed to do. You didn't do all that you could have done, right? So U is possible, but it's a point of inefficiency. And when we're talking about a society, unemployment is an example of when we get to U. So we have workers, but we're not using them efficiently. Maybe some of our machines are down. Maybe some of our workers are out because they're sick with coronavirus. It's not that we have fewer workers, we're just not using them for some reason. We're not being efficient for some reason. Everything on the green line, so A, B, C, and D, and everything inside, including U, is attainable, is possible. Everything on the green line is efficient. And so that green line is a frontier or a boundary between what's possible and what's not possible. So you can see Z over here on the right side is beyond the possibilities frontier or beyond the possibilities curve. And it is unattainable with the resources that we have right now. If we hire more people, if we get more technology, if we get more machines, guess what? This whole green line is going to shift to the right, and then we can get to point Z. But remember, given our scarce resources, if the best that we can do is A, B, C, or D right now, cannot get to Z, and that's going to be referred to as unattainable. That shape that you saw of the production possibilities curve, of it being bowed outward, is because of the law of increasing opportunity costs. And this deals with having to remember, opportunity cost is what you sacrifice, what you give up to get something else. Increasing opportunity cost means that we're going to have to end up giving up more and more and more. The sacrifice is going to be steeper and steeper, and we're going to have to sacrifice more. The price that we pay in terms of our loss to get more. And this is because in manufacturing facilities, we have such sophisticated machinery and equipment that, okay, we can switch some people from the computer line to the printer line who are packing up some boxes, but in order to repurpose machinery that's so specialized to produce a computer and then try to repurpose it to make a printer a completely different product, at some point you're going to be sacrificing more and more, and that leads to that bowed out shape. Economic growth. How do we get to a point outside to the right of the curve? When I mentioned that green line shifting to the right, that is representative of economic growth. How can that happen? If we get more workers, if we expand our building. So remember, our resources are land, labor, and capital. We've got better technology. Capital, by the way, in economics deals with physical capital. This is machinery and equipment, not financial capital. So resources in economics deals with land, labor, and physical capital. More of any of those, more technology, technological advancement can lead to that brightward shift. When we go from that dotted blue line to that solid blue line. And you'll notice that on this particular example, both of the end points shift for both computers and pizzas. It could be just one of the endpoints moving, and that would still be considered a shift or economic growth. For example, this solid blue line could be at 500 pizzas and still be at 60 computers, but that would still be considered a shift because one of the endpoints have moved. Investment in economics deals with a business buying more equipment, more machinery, buying their factory, expanding the factory. Any of that is called investment. So whenever you see that, don't think of financial investment like buying stocks and bonds. We're buying machinery and equipment that's going to be used for further production. For a nation as a whole, is there an opportunity cost of investment? Are they going to be giving up something when they're building more factories and machinery, buying and making more machinery and equipment? The answer is yes. We'll be giving up consumer goods. So we're going to be giving up consumption if a country is going to be looking at investing in physical capital. We'll learn about the calculation of gross domestic product later on, but investment is actually a component of GDP. So businesses who are purchasing new machinery and equipment, that is a positive addition into gross domestic product. And that's the end of chapter 2. Thank you so much, and we'll move on to chapter 3 next.